Chapter 201 Kingpin makes his move. At the junction of Hell's Kitchen and the Avengers Civil War, the mysterious Skrulls had no choice but to turn their attention here. They were hiding in the shadows, while a large number of police officers were on the scene controlling the situation, fearing that it might really turn into a battlefield. Not only that, the New York Police Department was also constantly asking the military for help. Now, apart from the military, there was basically no one who could suppress this group of angry people. On the rooftop of a tall building, two young people were looking towards the intersection. Does Gravy really intend to do this? Yes, I recently learned a saying in China. One general's success is built on the bones of 10,000. For the sake of our Skrull race, we would not hesitate to tread on mountains of corpses and seas of blood. With a gunshot, a bullet was fired from Hell's Kitchen, hitting a World War II veteran directly. This was like igniting a long-accumulated powder keg. The police knew that this was no longer under their control, and they immediately evacuated the area, fearing being hit by stray bullets. Kill these sons of bitches! The sounds of various assault rifles rang out, and even the sound of a sniper rifle could be heard. Send out our men, but try not to kill anyone. Focus on incapacitating them. Kingpin stood on the roof of Wilson Building and said calmly to the people behind him. Upon hearing this, the man immediately left and began organizing his men, especially the most elite squad. They were dressed in armored bulletproof vests and carried enchanted bullets. With their systematic training, their combat strength was no less than that of an army. Moreover, there are other gangs in Hell's Kitchen, especially Russian gangs. They started out in the arms trade, and their firepower is formidable. With enough money, they can even acquire advanced tanks and fighter jets. So when the Russian mafia got involved, the scene immediately resembled adults bullying children. Gatling guns roared across the entire area, suppressing ordinary residents wherever they went, making them unable to raise their heads. If Kingpin hadn't ordered that there be no large number of casualties, it's estimated that just this one machine gun would have been enough to quell the riot. Don't forget, this country doesn't ban guns. Although machine guns are strictly controlled, some World War II veterans always like to collect old guns from the previous era. So, an MG42 general-purpose machine gun appeared, and not just one, but more than a dozen. Its powerful firepower made people feel as if they had stepped into the World War II era. Boss, what's the next step? Are the snipers ready? The Russian mob boss asked. We're ready. We can fire at any time. Give Kingpin 10 more minutes. If he can't handle it, then we'll handle it ourselves. Shortly after the Russian mafia boss finished speaking, a fully armed squad appeared. They were wearing iron armor and bulletproof vests and were firing spell bullets. They used bullets that would knock people unconscious immediately and keep them unconscious for 12 hours, which was enough. As they entered, dozens of people fell to the ground within a dozen seconds. These ordinary people assumed that the people who fell had been killed, so they immediately retaliated in anger. However, the armor and bulletproof vests could provide all-around protection, but there were also a lot of bullets being fired at them. Soon, some people found that their armor and bulletproof vests were broken. However, these people immediately surrounded the man, who took out another piece of armor and bulletproof vest and put it on again. Relying on the armor and bulletproof vest, they managed to knock down all the hundreds of enemies there. Are you all crazy? A policeman roared as he ran toward them. Chief George, please calm down. They're fine, they just passed out. We're not crazy enough to kill indiscriminately. Upon hearing their explanation, the policeman immediately ran to the nearest person who had fainted. Feeling their breathing and hearing their chests rise and fall, the policeman realized that they were not dead, but had simply passed out. After dealing with them, the well-trained group immediately retreated back to Hell's Kitchen. Not only there, but the battles in the other two directions also ended quickly. Only the Hudson River side was more difficult to handle because those people came by boat, and Kingpin's men were not easy to deal with them. However, it didn't matter. They simply used sniper rifles to pick off the enemy, and soon all the ordinary people with weapons were knocked unconscious. With the military's intervention, the farce finally came to an end. Thanks to the military's control and the realities of the United States, no matter how angry or impulsive those people were, they couldn't actually fire at the military. If they accidentally hit a soldier, he would be met with merciless bullets. They don't care who you are or what your background is. If someone fires, they will retaliate immediately. Meanwhile, after the military entered the scene, a group of mob bosses gathered in a restaurant in Hell's Kitchen. They were there to put pressure on Kingpin, since the military's entry had caused many of their businesses to be unable to continue, resulting in significant losses for them. Kingpin, We have suffered heavy losses because of you, and now my business can no longer continue. Tell me, who should compensate for these losses? Yes, mine too. Seeing this, the other leaders all poured out their grievances. Enough, Kingpin said coldly, and immediately an aura of a mafia emperor filled the air, silencing everyone. Don't forget, my strength is enough to crush you. The only reason I'm keeping you here is because someone is stopping me from unifying Hell's Kitchen. Otherwise, do you really think you can stay here? Hearing Kingpin's words, everyone was furious, but they also understood that he was telling the truth. Kingpin sat in the main seat and looked at them. After a while, he said, "After these things are over, report your losses to me. I will trade with you for an equal amount of Twin Lions Stomp the Earth or black money or intelligence or something like that. In short, I will make up for your losses, but the premise is that you have not lied to me. Do you understand?" "Understood," everyone replied. After all, recovering their losses was already enough. With his newfound skills in gunfighting, armored body armor, cursed bullets, and various T-800 robots, Kingpin's power is now comparable to that of a medium-sized country. He even dares to challenge some weaker large nations, demonstrating just how formidable Kingpin's power is today. Even if the Americans wanted to suppress him, it was too late. Kingpin had already fully grown up. Chapter 202 Clarification. 5 days later, Li Qingyue returned to the space station, where Talos handed over the upgraded machine to him. "I've upgraded this machine, and I think it should be able to scan for Super Skrulls on Earth. Do you know them?" "Yes, sir." "Do you know why we are being hunted by the Kree?" "Why?" "It is because of our shape-shifting ability that hundreds of millions of years ago, we Skrulls were a super civilization that ruled over more than a dozen star systems. Because of our special genes, we can fuse the genes of all the powerful beings and thus gain their abilities. At that time, we fused with almost all the more famous and powerful genes in the universe, such as the Flora Giants, Titans, Frost Giants, Asgard, and even the genes of the Celestials. But it seems that precisely because of this, the Celestials joined forces with other races to launch a siege against us. This time, we suffered heavy casualties, even to the point of extermination. In order for our race to survive, the Skrull King at the time handed over the fusion machine and removed all the genes from our bodies, and promised that we would never undergo gene fusion again. Only then did they let us Skrulls go. Ronan somehow obtained this secret and wanted to capture us for their experiments, transferring our gene fusion ability to the Kree. That led to the Great War back then. I think you understand what happened after that. These Skrulls who fused with the genes of other races are the Super Skrulls." After hearing Talos' explanation, Li Qingyue frowned and asked, "I asked you before, are you sure that none of your Skrulls are missing?" "It's certain there will be no shortage, and they don't know this inside story, so they don't know how to manufacture the fusion machine. Do you remember the blood we gave you? It seems that the Skrulls on Earth are Skrulls from a parallel universe, and the Skrulls over there should be your future. Your guess is possible. Do you need our help?" "No, provided that your machine is actually usable. I've expanded the scope to the entire solar system. Give it a try." Li Qingyue nodded and then started the machine. A long string of numbers appeared on the screen, along with the labels Super Skrulls. There were 10 Super Skrulls in total. 10 Super Skrulls, how interesting. It seems they really came from another world. I just wonder how many worlds they've been through. Alright, I won't bother you anymore. You guys have fun. After saying that, Li Qingyue returned to Earth and immediately turned on the machine. He quickly scanned the existing Skrulls on Earth, totaling 253 people. Adding the 10 Super Skrulls, that makes 263 people. Looking at the red dot on the map, Li Qingyue decided to go to the nearest place first. When he stopped, Li Qingyue was surprised by what he saw, because he was actually in front of the Stark Group building. He went inside from the top floor. "Mr. Li, what brings you here?" Pepper asked Li Qingyue in surprise. At this moment, the only people in the office besides Pepper were Tony and Happy. Li Qingyue looked at Tony and Happy, then grabbed Happy by the neck and demanded, "Where are the people you kidnapped?" "Mr. Li, what are you saying? Let go of Happy right now," Pepper shouted anxiously. Tony stopped Pepper from rushing forward and said, "Don't get excited. He's not happy." "If he's not happy, then what is he?" Pepper struggled to say, but the next second Happy's body began to ripple, and then he turned into a Skrull. "It's no use, victory will be ours, and Gravy will avenge us." After saying this, the Skrull attempted suicide, but how could Li Qingyue let him have his way? He forced him to eat a golden apple, then took out a truth serum and forced him to reveal the location where they had captured those people. To his surprise, the location was actually at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Upon hearing this location, Tony's pupils contracted sharply, because this was not a place that ordinary humans could access. Even though it was more than 20 years after the nuclear leak that shocked the world, the radiation there was still deadly. Ordinary people could sense something was wrong from the outside, and if they went deep inside, they would even die instantly. When Li Qingyue tried to inquire about the safety of those people, he never expected that the Skrull would break free from the control of the truth serum with his strong willpower and commit suicide. "I'm going to find Happy," Tony said to Li Qingyue after he had Pepper sit down. "No rush, I'll go save him. The most important thing now is to deal with these Skrulls." After saying that, Li Qingyue continued to use the red dots on the map to knock the Skrulls unconscious, then bound them and threw them to Coulson and his men to keep an eye on them. After finally capturing all the Skrulls, Li Qingyue directly placed Gaia under global control of the internet and began a global live broadcast. When people saw Li Qingyue appear on the screen, almost everyone was furious. "I think everyone who sees me now is furious. I'm not here to provoke you, but to clear my name. The videos you've seen are maliciously edited. Thor is not dead. It's all the work of these aliens." As he spoke, Li Qingyue grabbed a Prime Minister of England. The English public, in particular, were outraged by the sight, never expecting that Li Qingyue would dare to lay a hand on the Prime Minister. "Everyone, don't blink." Li Qingyue slowly exerted force, and everyone watched as the English Prime Minister's face began to turn red. Finally, a ripple appeared on her body, and she actually turned into a green alien. Everyone was stunned, but Li Qingyue was not. He threw her to the ground, then grabbed the person on the ground who was the President of the United States. He did the same thing and eventually became an alien. "I'll give you one chance. If you turn back to your original form, I won't lay a hand on you. But if you keep looking like this, then don't blame me." Under Li Qingyue's threats, these people gradually reverted to their original state. "Now, do you see? This is the truth. I hope you won't be deceived." After saying that, Li Qingyue disconnected the link and handed the Skrulls over to S.H.I.E.L.D. Finally, he went to the nuclear power plant alone, where 10 Super Skrulls were already waiting for him. Chapter 203, The Powerful Super Skrull, Supplement 1, 6 Missing. Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. Li Qingyue landed from the air and looked at the 10 people in front of him. He could actually sense his own aura from them. "What have you done?" Li Qingyue demanded. "What did you do? Didn't you already know? You can't save those people unless you kill us," one of the 10 Super Skrulls said calmly. "So you must be the grave they're talking about. If I'm not mistaken, you're not Skrulls from this universe, are you?" "That's right, we come from Earth in another parallel universe. In that world, we almost succeeded in acquiring Earth. If it weren't for an undercover agent within our ranks, Earth would have been ours long ago. We were unwilling to accept this, and we paid the price of millions of our compatriots' lives to successfully break through the cosmic barrier and arrive in this brand new universe. Moreover, the timeline here is later than our universe. What I didn't expect was that you actually exist in this world. However, I think your strength should have been weakened by now." Looking at the confident Grave, Li Qingyue shook his head. Then, he flashed behind one of the Super Skrulls and kicked out, but Grave dodged with a roll. Immediately afterwards, the remaining 9 people fired Captain Marvel's laser, which hit Li Qingyue directly and sent him flying. "Ouch, this thing still hurts a bit. But it doesn't matter." Li Qingyue roared and charged at the 10 of them again. The 10 of them were not afraid and surrounded Li Qingyue from all directions. In order to better use their abilities, they all returned to their original state. Furthermore, Gaia used Stark Industries satellites to directly transmit the battle footage, meaning that all of Earth was watching the battle. Li Qingyue was like a war god, fighting 10 opponents at once, moving back and forth between them at an extremely fast speed, to the point that they were no longer visible to the naked eye. All the onlookers could see was a blur of light colliding with 10 dazzling figures. The most outrageous thing was that they had all fused with the extremity virus. The self-healing ability of this thing was just too outrageous. As soon as Li Qingyue severed their bodies, they were able to grow their lower bodies back in just a few seconds. "Zhao, how should we deal with them?" Li Qingyue murmured as he separated from them again. "Teacher, can't I really go and help the boss?" In Kamartaj, Constantine looked directly at the Ancient One and asked a question. "He can handle it by himself. Now we have to deal with Cassius." "My time is up, Constantine. From now on, you'll have to rely on yourself. Ancient One said, standing side by side with Constantine. Constantine was somewhat surprised to hear this, but quickly a look of relief appeared on his face. Then congratulations in advance, teacher. You are finally free. Yes, we can finally be free, the Ancient One said with a smile. The two looked down at Mordo and Strange, who were fighting. Now, under the tutelage of Gurren Constantine, Strange's combat strength was no less than Mordo's, and there were even signs that he might surpass him. It's time to start our show. You need to protect the 3 temples while Strange negotiates with Dorma, because I suspect Lucifer and Satan might take this opportunity to invade Earth. I understand, teacher. Constantine then took Hermione to the London Temple in England, where she was put in charge. Teacher, why do I have to sit here? Hermione asked, pouting. Since your current strength is no weaker than that of Mage Mordo, it is enough for you to guard 1 temple. Also, remember to protect yourself. If you encounter an opponent you cannot resist, do not force it. When it is time to leave, leave. Do you understand? I understand. But teacher, are you worried about me? Of course, you're my only student. Who else would I care about if not you? Constantine ruffled Hermione's hair and then turned and left. Hermione watched the figure enter the portal and sighed softly, then began to stroll around the London Temple. Mordo remained at the New York Temple, while Wong went to the Hong Kong Temple, thus ensuring that all 3 temples had powerful figures stationed there. Strange had already noticed something was wrong, but he couldn't pinpoint what the problem was, so he continued with today's training. Constantine sat in the hall, holding a tablet that was playing a video of Li Qingyue fighting 10 Super Skrulls. They are still stuck in a stalemate because no matter how Li Qingyue attacks them, they heal themselves in a very short time, which is very frustrating for Li Qingyue. Just then, the 1st and 2nd generation of Avengers appeared. With their help, Li Qingyue's pressure was greatly reduced. However, they were no match for them. After all, they had fused various genes, including the genes of Captain Marvel and Hulk, and even Thor's genes. And let's not forget the trio of Phantom Hive, Pietro, and Wanda from the 2nd Avengers. They were the main force, especially Wanda's chaos magic, which can alter reality. You guys hold them off. I'll be right back. After leaving those words, Li Qingyue flew towards the location of the agency. When these Super Skrulls saw Li Qingyue leave, they immediately unleashed their powerful strength, instantly suppressing the Avengers members. After all, they had speed, strength, defense, self-healing, and flight, completely overwhelming them in every aspect. The Avengers were quickly overwhelmed and unable to lift their heads. If it weren't for their excellent teamwork, they would probably have already lost. Most importantly, Natasha, Steve, Bucky, and Clint were all using equipment made of impact steel, plus the Iron Man suits that Tony had customized for them. Their strength had increased several levels, but they still couldn't withstand such a high-pressure battle. Even Hulk felt more frustrated than ever before. He was essentially fighting 10 versions of himself. Even though he was furious, his power could not be amplified enough to fight 10 of himself. Why hasn't Boss Lee come back yet? Tony shouted anxiously. I don't know, but it should be soon. Natasha dodged the attack and threw 2 darts that could release high-voltage electricity. The dart hit the Super Skrull, but he defiantly withstood the high voltage to remove the dart and attack them again. Just as everyone was about to be overwhelmed, 2 orange lasers appeared overhead. The lasers hit the Super Skrulls directly, forcing them back. When everyone looked up, they found that the person who came was actually Li Qingyue. Everyone, now it's round 2. Chapter 204, Golden Demon versus Green True Demon. Now it's round 2. Li Qingyue was so fast that even his afterimage disappeared. When he reappeared, he had already grabbed one of the Super Skrulls and was unleashing terrifying explosive beams from his hands. Even though half of his body was blasted away, he did not die. His mutilated body repaired itself at an extremely fast pace. Seeing this, Li Qingyue shot 2 laser beams from his eyes and chopped off his head. Even after the head was severed, their bodies continued to wriggle toward the skull and eventually repaired themselves. Now, not only Li Qingyue, but even the Avengers felt powerless. How is this possible? Nothing is impossible. Do you know how much we suffered to achieve our current strength? We expended a lot of resources to get to where we are today. Gravy mocked. Li Qingyue closed his eyes and slowly exhaled. When he opened his eyes again, he grabbed one of the Super Skrulls. Then, Li Qingyue took out a talisman and placed it on the body. The body writhed and the Super Skrull split into 2 Super Skrulls. Everyone present was stunned. Li Qingyue quickly scanned the 2 of them. then grabbed a timid-looking Super Skrull and flew into the air, asking, "What are your weaknesses?" "Ah, our weakness? Actually, it's the duration of the Extremis virus. If our heads and bodies are separated for an extended period, we will truly die. However, we haven't calculated the exact duration. There are other weaknesses as well. Let me tell you in detail." At this moment, Gravy finally sensed something was wrong and immediately grabbed the Super Skrull in the sky, throwing it onto another Super Skrull. The two immediately emitted a blinding white light upon contact, and then they merged back into one. A hexagonal stone fell from his body, and everyone looked at the stone and discovered that a white tiger was carved on it. However, it was a simple sketch with only a few strokes outlining two white tigers. "What is this thing?" Tony muttered. "Is this the time to worry about this? Let's get this over with," Steve shouted. The group immediately gave chase to the Super Skrulls. At this moment, one of the Super Skrulls said, "Grave, our weakness has been exposed. We should retreat." "No, I will not allow myself to fail twice. I will never retreat," Gravy roared as he charged madly toward Li Qingyue. However, he was no match for Li Qingyue now. Seeing that he was no match for Li Qingyue by himself, Gravy went so far as to attack his own people and absorb them. His every move shocked everyone. "Gravy, what are you doing? I need power, and you need to lend me a hand." With that, Gravy continued flying toward the second Super Skrull. "Stop him!" Li Qingyue roared, feeling the surging demonic bloodline within Gravy. As the others came to their senses, Phantom Prison shot out two golden laser beams from his eyes. This was the energy of the Mind Stone, but Graves immediately transformed into his binary form. With energy on par with the Infinity Stones, he ignored the laser beams and grabbed another Super Skrull, absorbing it into his body. "Too late," Li Qingyue murmured. In Li Qingyue's eyes, the demonic power within Gravy's body had now fully taken shape, and a phantom of a demon had condensed behind him. "What's late?" As they chased after Gravy, they asked him questions. "It's too late. He's already become a demon." "Demon!" The next moment, green lightning struck Gravy. With a roar, Gravy skipped the devil transformation and became the green true devil. Moreover, Captain Marvel's energy and the green magic of the true devil floated around his body. Such immense power is truly irresistible. Gravy felt the surging power within him, a power that gave him the illusion that he was invincible. Upon seeing this, Li Qingyue's body trembled, and he also entered the demon state. However, due to the Silver Superman's steel body, flight ability, and strength, his demon transformation changed, and he now actually became a golden demon. The golden demon gives off a strange feeling, a mixture of holiness and eeriness, sometimes holy, sometimes eerie, making one break out in a cold sweat. One of them transformed into a golden streak of light, while the other transformed into a green streak of light. Finally, the two rushed towards each other. When they collided, everyone sensed something was wrong and ran frantically into the distance. Pietro, in particular, had pushed himself to the limit. He had to transport more than 200 people to a safe location. If it weren't for his endurance training, he would probably be exhausted by now. Just as he picked up the last person, the powerful shockwave behind him arrived as expected, turning the entire nuclear power plant into ruins. Even the ruins were gone, leaving only a huge crater. Everyone watching the live broadcast was stunned. To put it bluntly, such combat power was enough to easily destroy a country. Some countries have even begun to doubt whether nuclear weapons are still effective against them. Should we release a nuclear bomb? No, the president is still there. He absolutely cannot be released, the Secretary of Defense retorted. Who knows if the president we rescue is really the president? What if he's just that green-skinned alien in disguise? The vice president said. The others saw through his idea at a glance, but there was really no better way at the moment. Just then, a phone call came in. The Minister of Defense immediately turned on the speakerphone. The person on the other end was the president, who informed the Minister of Defense by presidential order that nuclear weapons must not be used. Not only in the United States, but also among the high-ranking officials of various countries around the world, including some of the wealthiest people on the list. Under their pressure, countries ultimately had no choice but to abandon the idea of using nuclear weapons to attack them. It seems we won't be able to participate in the upcoming battle, Tony murmured, watching the two streaks of gold and green light colliding in the air. Since they can't participate in the next battle, let's send these people back first, Steve said, looking at the still bewildered people. Coulson, have you arrived? We've arrived. As soon as the words were spoken, the space carrier appeared, and then sent down a large number of transport planes to pick up these ordinary people first. In the end, only the Avengers remained. They looked at the battlefield, and just as they hesitated, the battlefield suddenly changed again. Chapter 205 Another Evolution. Your power is still insufficient. If you wish to fulfill the long-cherished wish of our Skrull race, then please hand over your power to me. Gravy shouted to the other Super Skrulls after forcing Li Qingyue back. The other Super Skrulls hesitated for only a second before transforming into streaks of light and entering his body. The next moment, Gravy roared, each roar unleashing a shockwave that stretched for hundreds of kilometers, directly dispersing all the clouds in the sky. Even cities near the nuclear power plant were shaken, and this was only the shockwave it released. Feeling the power unleashed by Gravy, a hint of apprehension flashed in Li Qingyue's eyes. After all, the power of this thing might have already surpassed his current strength. It's still just a little bit short, just a tiny bit short, Gravy shouted angrily, because he could feel that the magic swordsman bloodline in his body was just a little bit short of energy to evolve. If it could really evolve to its complete form, then he would be confident of defeating Li Qingyue, a complete and utter victory. Almost there? Then let us help you. A strange voice rang out on the battlefield, followed by two figures, one a young man and the other a middle-aged man, both dressed in expensive-looking suits. They attacked simultaneously, and two dark red energies entered Gravy's body. Gravy immediately completed his final transformation. It was as if a shackle within him had shattered. He let out a roar, and the shockwave, which had become tangible, could be clearly seen even in space. At this moment, Jill, who was in the firm, saw this scene and immediately ran to find Fury, asking him to issue a commission so that Li Qingyue could use the temporary employee recruitment order. After all, Weiss's power was still fresh in everyone's mind. Fury frowned, but still went through the process, and the reward was only $1. After all, it was just to give Li Qingyue a way to use the temporary employee recruitment order. Looking at Gravy, who had evolved into a fully evolved demon with 4 pairs of fluorescent green wings, Li Qingyue looked Gravy up and down, slowly exhaled, and charged forward with his giant scythe in hand. Gravy suddenly plunged his head into his chest, and then pulled out a dark green bone sword from the wound. Seeing Li Qingyue rushing towards him, Gravy slowly raised his bone sword. With a sudden swing, a green energy beam struck him directly, sending him flying. A wound appeared on Li Qingyue's chest, running through his entire body. However, under the sun's rays, the wound was healing at an extremely fast pace. Li Qingyue had not expected that the fully formed demon swordsman bloodline would be so powerful, causing him serious injury with just one strike. Again, Li Qingyue roared, his foot suddenly pushing off, and he appeared behind Gravy as if in a flash. He unleashed a powerful attack, but Gravy didn't even raise his head as he made a backslinging motion. The giant scythe struck the bone sword, and the powerful force sent Gravy flying. The fact that he could knock him away meant that Li Qingyue had a way to beat him, or even defeat him. After stabilizing himself, Gravy once again engaged in battle with Li Qingyue. Every strike they made altered the landscape beneath their feet. In just a few minutes, it became impossible to tell that a nuclear power plant had ever stood there, and there was no trace of greenery. Are you really not going to drop nuclear weapons? I'm afraid if they keep fighting, the Earth will be destroyed, the Russian defense minister said. Summon the remaining 4 permanent members for a joint meeting, the emperor said with a grim face. Before long, the leaders of the 5 powerful nations gathered together. As you can see now, I want to use a nuclear weapon. The President of the United States immediately objected. No, we cannot use nuclear weapons. The emperor gazed at the president and said calmly, I am merely informing you that if we allow them to continue fighting, Russia will be plunged into chaos and devastation. Therefore, for the sake of the nation's safety, I will activate the nuclear missiles. Are you crazy? What if the nuclear bombs fail to kill them? Do you know what awaits you? The President of the United States shouted. Other national leaders also tried to dissuade him, but for the sake of his country, the emperor ultimately decided to activate the nuclear missile. You're insane. You're really insane. If 1 shot isn't enough to kill them, then 2, 3. If you don't want to face their wrath, then join me. The emperor's current idea is simple, to drag all nuclear-armed nations into the conflict. In short, if he himself suffers, other countries shouldn't expect to either. After all, if the nuclear bombs he drops aren't enough to kill the 2 men, the world will face their furious retaliation. So, They have no choice but to drop nuclear bombs together, hoping that a large number of nuclear weapons can kill Li Qingyue and the other man. However, only one country refused to do so, and that was China. They knew Li Qingyue's strength, so they did not believe that nuclear weapons could completely kill the two. In addition, Li Qingyue himself had an Asian appearance, and according to their intelligence, Li Qingyue was very likely Chinese. So based on this alone, they would not take action. The emperor had not expected that China would abandon its cooperation with them, but now the die was cast and the die was cast. Your Majesty, the nuclear missiles are ready. Should we launch them? Other countries will only launch their nuclear missiles after we do. The Minister of Defense said softly from behind the emperor. The emperor was still watching the live stream. Li Qingyue was gradually falling into a disadvantageous position. However, he knew that as long as he ran out of magic power, he could defeat or even kill Gravy. The question was, could he hold out for that long? I'm not playing with you anymore. I guess you're trying to stall me until I run out of magic, right? But let me tell you, I have enough magic to wear you down. With that, Gravy began to gather his magic. Seeing this, Li Qingyue slowly exhaled and flipped his hand to reveal a card. I didn't want to use it so soon, but I acknowledge your abilities. The next second, the card transformed into a stream of light and entered Li Qingyue's body. Then, Li Qingyue's hands uncontrollably grabbed the giant scythe and plunged it into his heart. Seeing Li Qingyue's actions, Gravy realized something and rushed towards Li Qingyue, trying to stop him, but it was too late. A golden lightning bolt covering the entire nuclear power plant struck down from the void. After the lightning dissipated, a figure appeared in the air, radiating golden light. It turned out that Li Qingyue was using the Bloodline Evolution card. He originally planned to use it after his bloodline evolved to the Demon Swordsman bloodline, but now he had to use it ahead of time, otherwise he might really be unable to defeat Gravy. Gravy, the fourth round has begun.